Alright, so we're having a hard time sometimes finding equations of lines as well as writing equations of lines. So I want to take today to go over that again and kind of review that with you guys. It should be review, but if it's not, I'm going to try to go through this pretty thoroughly so that you can get that again. Um, the sub should have given you guys a worksheet. If you guys don't already have that worksheet, get it from the sub. But it just says graphing and writing linear equations. So I'm going to go through graphing two linear equations and writing equations of two linear equations. Um, or of two graphs. So writing two linear equations of graphs. So hopefully that gives you a good review. Then you'll have 4 lines to graph, and you'll have 6 lines to find the equations of. When you guys are done, you're going to get on Mathia and work on that. So I want to give you a little bit of a reminder that linear equations are in the form of y equals mx plus b. Remember that our m is our slope, and our slope is always rise over run. We're just going to use these terms for slope on here because we're talking about graphs. So that's really all we have to know for that. It's also sometimes written as change in y. Remember that's what that triangle means, over change in x. So we don't really need to use those other terms for this because we're just graphing. So changing y over change in x and rise over run, that's all we need. Remember the b is our y-intercept. So wherever that crosses the y-axis, that's going to be our b. Remember we always do plus b. So if you see like a -3 there, that means that's down below the x-axis. So we're going to talk about that stuff some. So here's the first 2 problems that you guys have on your worksheet, and we're just going to go ahead and graph those. First of all, this 1/2 is our slope, and slope is rise over run. Also, it's change in y over change in x. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those things. You guys should have seen change in y over change in x in 8th grade. If you didn't, we're reviewing those terms. So this is 1/2, so I just want to write it right here so we can really see what is what. So the whole top of all of these are talking about rise or change in y, which is 1. The bottom part is talking about run or change in x, which is 2. So we need to keep that in mind. The other piece that we have on here is this -3. This -3 is our y-intercept. If you don't remember this, I would write this down. Your y-intercept is wherever the line crosses the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis is this one. The one that is vertical, that is our y-axis. So, you're always going to start there. Whenever you graph these, you're always going to start with your y-intercept. Ours is -3, so we're going to put a point at -3 on the y-axis. Okay? Now, our rise or our change in y is 1. So I'm going to kind of try to draw this on here so you can at least visualize it a little bit. So we're going to start at that black point, but then our rise or our change in y is 1. So I'm going to go up 1. Oh, sorry. Alright, hold on 1 second. So our rise or change in y is 1. So the reason we call this change in y is because this is going up or down. That's our y-axis, right? These should really be labeled y and x. That's our change in y. How much are we changing in y? We're changing 1. We're adding 1 to that. We're going to go up 1. Okay? Now our run or our change in x is 2. Well, change in x, that's left to right. So if we say change in x, now we're going to go to the right 2. So our change in x is 2. Okay? I'm going to have to erase some stuff here in a second. But that's our 2 points, you guys. We started with this point down here, and now we're at this point over here. We rose 1, we ran 2. Okay? So now we just need our line. Okay, there's our line. I'm going to erase some stuff on here because this looks really confusing right now. Okay, so we're going to go back through this and talk exactly about what this means. So we started at -3 because our y-intercept is -3. So we've got -3 down here. Then our rise over run is 1 over 2. So we're going to go up 1 because it's +1. We're going to go right 2 because it's +2. There's our new dot. The biggest mistake I see kids making sometimes, you guys, is you'll go down to -3 and you'll put your point. But then I see kids starting here again and going up 1 over 2. And they'll say this is their point. No, no, no. We got to start at -3, up 1, right 2. That's it. That's our new point. Don't go start back at the center again. You're starting at your starting point. Your y-intercept is your starting point. Okay, so now let's try to graph another one. So we've got y equals, I don't have the y equals on here. So y equals, it's okay that it's at the back side of that. It's still the same thing. And it's actually a good thing that I put that there. Because now we can talk about the slope is whatever's with the x. So this is our slope in this case. So this is our slope, or rise over run, or change in y, which is up and down, over change in x, which is right or left. So this is 2/5. Okay? But we don't start there. We start with whatever is added or subtracted without an x with it. So we've got just a +3 here. So let's go ahead and start there. We've got a +3, which means we're going up 3. That's our y-intercept, okay? Which is also our starting value. So we're going to start there at that point. So from that 3, now we have to do our rise over run. So we're going to rise 2. We're going to run 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now we just need our line. Okay, here is our line. We still have our rise of 2, our run of 3, and our starting was 3. So we've got all of the pieces there. Our run was not 3, it was 5. So we've got our rise of 2, our run of 5, and our starting value was 3. Okay, so you guys have 4 more of these to do. In this unit, you're going to be asked to do that a lot. We're probably going to have an exit ticket when you get back from Thanksgiving break, or tomorrow, Tuesday, in class, that goes over this stuff, because I want to check where you guys are at on this. On your test, at the end of this unit, you're also going to be asked to do this with some of those questions. So I want to make sure that you guys can do this, because this is important so that we can move on to some other stuff, because you're going to have to continually use this. This is one of those concepts that you're going to keep having to use over and over and over again. Okay? So now we're going to switch, and we're going to have a graph, and we're going to write an equation for it. So here's our graphs for 7 and 8, and we need to write an equation. When we write these equations, it's going to be y equals mx plus b. So we need to fill those things in. Remember that m is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. We also want to make sure that our slope is rise, or change in y, over run, which is change in x. So we're going to fill those things in. So we kind of need a general template here. We're going to have y equals something times x plus something. So we need to figure out what those are. Remember, we're going to start with our y-intercept, right? So if I look over here, my y-intercept here is 3. On this other one, I'm at 4. My graph might be off just a little bit from your guys' because I had to kind of graph these by hand, but they're pretty accurate on yours. So you should know exactly where that y-intercept is at. If you guys look at problem 14, you have to go down to get to that y-intercept. So that y-intercept is actually at -1 on problem 14. So this one we saw we had 3, so we're just going to write a 3 at the end. That's our y-intercept. Done. Now we just need to find our rise over run. To do that, we got to find another nice point. So the next nice point that I see on your guys's is at 3, -2. We want something where it crosses those crosshairs. That's a nice point. If I have a point in the middle of the box, that's not a nice point. If it's on one of these edges right here, but not where those cross, that's not a nice point. So I need to choose 2 nice points to use for my rise over run. So to get from 3 to the other one, we're going to go down. So we have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to go down 5, so it's -5. We're going to run 3. It's going to the right, so the right is positive, the left is negative, up is positive, down is negative. So we went down 5, so it's -5. We went right 3, so it's +3. So this is going to be over 3. And that is our equation. -5/3 can't be simplified. That's the simplest version, so we're just going to leave it just like that. Okay, let's do our other one. Let's write our general form that we have for linear equations. We got y equals something times x plus something. So we need this y-intercept first. We already found that. It crosses at 4, so I'm going to fill in a 4 at the end. Now we need to find another nice point on here. One of the nice points I'm seeing on yours is 2, -2. There's probably more. That's just the first one that I saw. So we'll see where that gets us. Before we move on, I want to point one thing out, because there's not only one nice point on here. If you guys look at the other one, I could go down 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the right 3. And I would get another point that's on that line. So we could do this over and over again all day long. I could go over here and go to left 3, which is going the opposite way, and go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's close. It should be exact on your guys's. And it'd be the same thing. So your slope is the same thing for that entire line, okay? So let's go to this one. We're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down is negative, so it's -6. Then we go to the right 2, so it's +2. I could do that again. I could go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And to the right 2. 1, 2, and I'm at that line again. I want to point something else out, because -6/2 is what we have for our slope. -6/2. -6/2 is just -3, or -3/1. So -3. We can actually fill that in with -3 here. But on your graph, you guys, we should be able to see this. So if I go down 3, so down 3, I do go to the right 1. I could go down 3 and to the right 1 again. Down 3 to the right 1. Down 3 to the right 1. So this is the same slope for this whole line. So it doesn't really matter which 2 points you're using, but I don't want to use that point, don't want to use this point, don't want to use this point. None of those are good. I could use this point up a little higher. Um, ooh, it's actually up a little higher than that. So it's gonna have the same slope all along there. Mine is a little off from yours, it's because I had to draw this by hand. But yours should be pretty exact on there. That's gonna have the same slope for the whole line, so you can choose any 2 points. Your starting value is a really good point to start from, though. I would always use that as one of your points, especially on these graphs. Sometimes you won't have as nice of a starting value, and we'll talk about that later on, what we do with that. But all of these ones are going to have a really nice starting value. So I would work off of that point and choose one more point. So you guys have 6 more of these to do. When you're finished, you're working on Mathia. So remember that last 20 minutes of our class should be Mathia. So you guys should have enough time to finish this and have about 15-20 minutes of Mathia time. So please make sure you guys are working this whole time.